Hey, we're out here at Metsa Machines in Merrill, Wisconsin today, and I'm here with Ryan, and he's what are you?
I'm a marketing and admin guy.
Admin guy at Metsa Machines. So I just came down. It's only about 45 minutes from my house to take a look at some of the machines they've got out here and some of the firewood operation they got going on. So, Ryan, what do we got here in front of us in the yard?
So right now we're standing next to the Japa 365 Pro. This is our PTO model. It's what we typically use for production here at our shop. We've got the 422 log rack next to it, which is probably my favorite rack to use with the 365. It's compact, just really a solid rack. And then we've also got the Japa cleaner, which is a drum style barrel cleaner at the end of the conveyor. And we've had this loaded up with ash, birch. We got some maple in the pile that we haven't thrown on yet, but that's what we've been working through here the last few months with our firewood operation.
See, so the 365 has got a 4-way wedge on it right now.
Yep, and that comes standard with it. You could swap out to a 6-way or an 8-way knife. The 4 and 6 are really what we use a lot, and if you look at the wood we have right now, a lot of that's pretty small diameter, so we've been splitting a lot of that just in half. It's just been going through it really quickly. I mean, birch splits easy, ash splits easy. It's really good firewood, and some people criticize that, but I don't mind it when it's easy to split.
It dries so fast too.
Yeah.
And so this stuff that's a hydraulic 4-way. It goes up and down.
Yep. So you got the Pro and the basic 365s. With the Pro, you have a hydraulic knife lift, which is going to be this lever in the front of the machine. With the basics, you have a manual adjustment. You actually can see the panel here where it would be cut out. There would be a lever here to raise and lower it.
Okay, yeah.
But those swap out with a pin. Really easy to pull, lift those out of the way. One of the really nice things actually about the knives too is they have the side supports on them.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And that basically stops it from warping and deflecting, which is when you have a freestanding knife, you're pushing logs through it, and a lot of the splitters, they're using 20, 30 tons. I mean, ours is actually a pretty low tonnage splitter, but you just reduce the strain on your knife because of that.
So how is this one powered?
So this one we currently have hooked up to our power pack in the back, but this is a PTO powered unit.
3-point, what does it weigh, and typically what is a typical PTO lift capacity required to lift this?
So you're at, so you got the 3-point hitch, as you said. This unit, I want to say, is just shy of 2,000 pounds as a PTO unit.
Yep.
Horsepower, you need to run it. You're going to be at 30 to 35 horsepower. So typically anyone with a 40 horsepower tractor can run it. Because of the drop off, a lot of people, I think, forget about that sometimes.
Okay.
And then we got the oil cooler, which is just a 12 volt oil cooler. This one we have a plug that we've rigged up here. So just a 2-pin connector. But if you have like a cigarette lighter, we have adapters.
You plugged it on the tractor.
Yeah, so when you're running it on your tractor, you can just plug it into the cigarette lighter.
Here's the oil cooler then. Yeah,
yep.
That's nice.
So that won't kick on right away, but it does have, so this is the sensor.
It's got a thermostat.
Yeah, so this is the sensor up here. And the reason we actually have the battery, the quick disconnect on these is because on a hot sunny day, sometimes those can heat up enough where it will trigger the oil cooler. And we don't want people walking outside to dead batteries on either the tractor, or if they have an engine unit, we don't want their battery to die for their engine.
Now, does this one come with what's the patented box wedge?
So the perfect split system is something that's only on the 405 processor.
Yeah.
It's going to be on the 435 processor. And then Japa recently announced at a show this past summer the 505 processor, which is all going to have the perfect split system. There are some new developments that I can't get into right now, but we are excited for hopefully that we can announce more on next year. Yeah,
that's cool. That's perfect for kind of more bundled firewood, the perfect split.
Yeah, and you can get I think with the 365, you're really, with the 14-inch diameter max, at 14 inches using the 6-way, I think you're getting a bit bigger than what you want for bundle wood still.
Yeah.
And part of the issue is when you're splitting, a round log and you're going through any kind of knife, unless you have it sectioned out in the center, your pieces are going to start getting way too big for bundles, which is what's really nice about the 365 is when you're working at those smaller diameters, like again what we have here right now, none of that stuff is really getting too big for bundling. and you have full control over 2 or 4-way split, and that's what we've been doing here.
Does this one come with a 6-way wedge too?
So you can get a 6-way. So we have one of the older styles actually propped up front there.
Yep.
That's our older demo 6-way knife that we have.
Okay.
They actually changed it a little bit. They have a handle on the top now that one doesn't show.
So then the hydraulics off of the splitter, off the processor, will power. It looks like the power is the log rack and also the cleaner as well.
Yep. So hydraulic lines, you can see here, you've got your cleaners coming into the motor on the conveyor, and then you just loop in the hydraulic lines to the barrel itself and then the outfeed conveyor. So technically there's 2 pairs of lines on the cleaner. There's one at the conveyor motor, and then there's one at the motor that drives the barrel itself.
Yep.
So you create a looped circuit with those, and once you do that, everything runs off of the processor, and it just loops into the motor on the conveyor.
So the tractor's powering everything in this whole unit. When in your case, you have the power, the little power unit.
Yeah, your tractor would run everything. We use the power pack just for convenience of moving it around the yard.
Okay.
And we also actually have our tractor in getting its annual maintenance done right now, so that's why it's not here in the yard.
Yeah. Well, should we run this thing?
Yeah, I could fire it up, and we can run a few logs through it.
Yeah, let's see. I've never run a processor before, or even seen one up close. So this is gonna be fun for me.
Yeah, no, we'll give you the full rundown.
I guess before we do get started, I do have one question about the PTO connection. Is it hard or slow? Because that's one of the biggest thing I can have concerns about the PTO one. Is you need the tractor to load the logs on the rack, but also you need it to run it. Is it difficult to connect it?
So if you aren't connecting anything else to the PTO, I think it's probably one of the easiest connects and disconnects, because as long as your shafts stay aligned properly, it's really easy. It's just one of those spring buttons.
Yeah.
So now it's disconnected. If you don't run the PTO, it should still be in the same position. Come back.
It just takes practice to learn where that's got to line up. And
well, basically, so the way I like to do it is so if you have it out, you can see the notches on the shaft.
Yep.
Those should still be pretty much in line. So the way I kind of do it is I wiggle it on until it rests there properly without having to actually lock it in place. Then you push the pin down.
It slides on there.
Yeah, okay. So once you have that down, and then we have the clip here for making sure it turns safety, so you have your protection guard on.
Yeah.
And then it's a 540 shaft. We run it at 400 RPM.
Nice.
And it's again pretty easy once you get it lined up and you actually look at what you're doing. It's pretty easy.
So just thinking about the process, it's not that big of a deal to have a tractor that's running this, and then if you need to load the logs on, and then bounce back and forth between loading and running the processor.
Yeah, and we have the rack built right now. One thing you can do when you're setting up this rack is you could actually set up the rollers so they're opposite and have the rack behind the machine. So if you were in a situation like this and you had your tractor here, you could loop around, pick up your logs, and then load from the back instead of driving back around it. Yeah, depending on how your setup is.
Depends how where your log pile is and where you got to load them. So okay, cool. That's cool. All right, let's get this thing fired up and see what happens. All right, so what do we do?
So we'll go over the controls quick. So while your hood's open, none of the hydraulics work. Your saw's not going to engage. Your splitter won't engage. Close that. So with the Japa, as you finish your cut, once you get down to the bottom of your saw cycle, that's what causes the splitter to engage.
Okay.
You have a manual engage as well, manual stop, and again, as soon as you open it, the hydraulic stop.
Yeah.
Your knife adjustment is here. So this one, I believe.
Yep. So that one does operate when you have it open.
Yep. And then you have your log singulator here, which the lockdown. So it's one hand control for all the basic functions.
Yep.
We're going to just do half splits, so I'm bringing the knife all the way up. In feed. Makes contact.
And then that's adjustable to whatever length you want it to
So
be.
we have it at 16. One thing that people think is that it automatically stops the in-feed, but as you can see, the in-feed still runs.
Yeah, okay.
So you don't want to turn that up and have it bash in, but
Yeah.
I've never had an issue with that as long as you're paying attention to what you're doing.
Yeah.
But it's in. We like to keep our cuts consistent, so we take off the last little bit. We have the tape measure here at 32 inches,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
so I cut this bit off, throw it to the side, and now I can do my last cut, my last 2 splits.
Yep. Missed it.
Yep. So with this one, part of it's one when you're doing the smaller sizes, you don't have the weight, but your in-feed still works too, so you can kind of push it up against it. And last split. And your little trick here, if you want to be really lazy.
All right, can I run it?
Yep. So
So this is the,
that's the thing you
that's down there.
Yep, so we'll start with the in-feed.
Huh?
So push up and then over.
Okay. So this one runs,
The teeth there, so.
oh, the let logs down.
Yep. Now the way I like to run it, the way I stand at the machine pretty much is like this. I have one hand here, one hand here. That way when I'm running it, if it falls weird, like with this one, when you want to adjust your split height, as I said, as soon as you come back up, it engages the splitter.
Yep.
On this first cut, this one's going to be a bit hot, the knife's a little too high for it. So what I could do is cut it, and then before bringing the saw back up, open up. And when I open it, it won't engage the split cycle. And then I have time to adjust the knife to make sure your split height's good enough.
Oh, I see the knife actually, yeah.
Otherwise, you can hold the saw down and adjust this while you hold the saw down to make sure it's lined up. You're just going to be running the saw as you adjust the knife.
Okay, I see. So what, ideally you want to
Yeah. So yeah.
do that
Yeah.
ish.
Yeah. So you can adjust that. Now you use the saw. And then push back up.
Okay.
So in feed. Push back up.
So like here, I feel like the knife should be a little bit lower yet.
Yep. Yep.
So is it okay to pinch that in there, or?
Yep. So basically, what's ending up happening is as you lower it, right now it's kind of floating there. So now it's actually going to sit there because if you can go all the way down, and it's kind of pulling it down against it. What will happen now is if you push a log through it, it's going to cause those logs it's going to drop the knife down. So if you want it to sit,
I mean, if you really wanted to adjust it right, you should really go in there and push those logs out.
yeah.
Okay.
But like there, it should be fine. So if you run the next cut through. And one thing I do recommend is wait for the log to fully rest in the chamber before you bring the saw back up, because that's how you avoid it going in crooked.
Okay. And now we want to raise that knife up.
Yep.
Can you slide that forward when that's in the splitting, or does have the head have to be all the way
You
back?
can slide it forward.
Okay. So in that case, where we cut it off short, you lifted it up, everything stops.
Yep.
Okay.
And part of this too is, part of the reason this is gripping is because it's getting colder out. You can adjust your tensions here
Oh yeah.
to make sure it's either holding it less or more, depending on your log sizes. As it gets colder, you know, metal contracts, expands as the temperatures change.
And that design is unique too, because the more it goes up, the tighter it is. So that means that the heavier your log too.
Yeah.
So you got to find that balance point.
Yeah.
Now, do you usually use your hand to put it in there? Or?
Either way.
Yeah.
But then, last one's manual.
So the other one's pretty gnarly. Got that tip on it.
Yep.
That fits just in there. So you say 14-inch diameter, huh?
Yep. Now they gotta push that one through. This one's a weird one to split because you really don't have a good spot to split it.
So you also sell these trailers too?
Yeah, these are the Ultratech trailers. This is the light trailer. Again,
Made in Finland as well.
everything's made in Finland. We're very consistent with that, at
Yeah.
least so far.
Finnish.
Yep.
Is this company related to Japa at all, or is it?
Nope, completely separate.
Okay.
But I mean, we use these, as you can see. We're using them for collecting our debris right now.
And they're dump trailers.
Yep. So they have a pin on these. That one has a latch mechanism. So this one's just got a pin on the front.
Yep.
Lift up, dump. The front panel, back panel, both slide off. So these just these are just clips.
And this is all galvanized steel?
Yeah.
Looks like it.
Yeah, it's galvanized steel. I'm forgetting the weight of it off the top of my head, but they hold up well. I mean, we've beaten on some of these trailers pretty hard, and we have one guy at our cabin who did a number on one, but they still work. And this one has an articulating axle actually, so if you're going over uneven terrain.
Oh, nice. I see that. Yep.
So
the little 1x2 tube goes up and down for the different wheels.
yeah, so that way you're not warping, and then it's a swivel tongue hitch so that it ends up so it can rotate. So if you're at the front on a weird angle, you don't need to worry about
MetsaMachines.com.
it warping. But yeah, this is how we process it, everything into crates. Our goal here is to basically limit how much we have to handle the wood.
Well, that's ultimately the goal for all firewood operations.
Yeah, and that's why we like the processors, because you take your logs and you don't need to buck them up or anything like that. You just load them in and you're good to go.
All right, we finished looking at the 365 Pro. Now there's a 365 Plus Basic. Is it 365 Plus Basic or 365 Basic?
So they're both technically pluses. What the plus means is that they did a facelift to it. So when Japa releases a machine, it's just the number, and then sometimes after a couple of years, they'll go through and they'll change things. So like the log clamp thing that here, before, this used to be just flat and it didn't have a handle here.
Yeah.
So they went back through it and they changed the design of that.
The curve, put a little curve to it.
Yep. This used to not be part of it, so they changed that. They widened out the exit here for your conveyor, and so they just do things like that, and that's what they call a facelift.
That's the plus.
Yep, and so that's what the plus means.
Okay.
The main differences between the basic you're going to see are this one has a handle here, which is going to be your sawing.
Yep.
And then pushing forward is your infeed. And then like the Pro, it's going to have automatic splitting after you do the cut. You still have your manual. And then you also have manual knife height adjustment here instead of hydraulic.
Okay. Yep.
This one you can actually see this has the newer style knife in it, the newer
six-way knife.
Yeah, so you can see, this one's got the handle on it. It's got some more material up top.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So this handle here runs both the saw and the feed.
Yep. So you push forward. So push forward, that's your infeed.
Yep.
Then saw, infeed, saw. And I mean, this is very little effort to run.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the thing with the PTOs, and it's interesting, is in the U.S. market, a lot of people I think are afraid of PTO units.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to put hours on their tractor. And I think that's a valid concern because you don't want to put hours on your tractor. But the advantage to a PTO is you're not putting really intensive hours on your tractor because you're just running your PTO. You're not putting hours in the transmission or anything like that.
Or loader.
Yeah, and so because of that, you are putting hours on it, but they're not hours that's going to cause a lot of wear and tear on your machine. And if you're doing your regular maintenance, it can be a lot easier to maintain just your tractor engine than a separate engine on your machine. Because I get a lot of calls at the beginning of every fall with people like, oh, my engine doesn't want to start. And I have to go, well, did you leave fuel in it all year?
Yeah.
Is the oil good? Did the battery die? And if you're running a tractor, you're already checking all those boxes when you're running a tractor.
Are the 365s only PTO driven?
No, so these ones do come with, you could do 3-phase with them.
Okay.
Or you can get a Honda engine on them, is what we currently offer.
Yep.
And then with the Pro, we have the road versions, which are the road towable units.
Yeah, and those have engines on them.
Yep, those are, so right now with the 365s, any unit with an engine on it is coming with a Honda IGX 800 engine.
Okay. Well, we'll look at those too in a little bit. So this has got a different log, this has just got a log lift on it.
Yep, so this can run with that rack. You can see that you still have the same handle here. This is just, now instead of doing the singulator, this is lifting up your arms to lift up your log.
And that's hydraulic.
Yep.
Okay.
And you'll see here, the way it works is it pivots so you can go all the way down. You don't have to worry about accidentally
I've seen these
ripping your arms off.
on some videos, this type of log lift. Okay, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So you can still stockpile some wood here, just like you have,
Mm-hmm.
and then manually roll the log over onto the arms and then lift it up.
Yep, and we usually recommend, if you're using something like this, get a pickaroon or a cant hook or something.
Yeah.
Makes it easier. A lot of the stuff is really, like, again, it's small, like this log.
You just bring it up on,
Yeah, you could just do that by hand. So, and that's going to be a little bit faster than a log lift if it's tiny stuff. And it's a good way to get your squats in for the day. That's the way I try to look at it.
I see you got some different trailers over here now too. What do you got? What's going on? A little grader or something?
Yeah, so some of the Ultratech stuff we've only gotten a select few in on. So they're not stuff that we've really pushed too much. It's something that we have the option to explore. You got the road grader here. This one's got a manual winch. I do know there's like a remote style that we've never brought in to manually lift and raise it, but I've used this for maintenance. We got our...
So this is designed for maintaining a driveway.
Yeah, gravel driveway. Let's get our road out.
It's got little scrapers, and it's a winch that you can lower down onto the driveway. I'd imagine that probably does work pretty well.
It works. Yeah, I mean, if it's really obscene, I don't think it's gonna work as well as you want it to. Just if you have a lot of material you need to try and shift, I think in those places try to level out, because if you have a bunch of stuff, I mean, and depending on the size of what you're using to pull it, I've definitely maxed out our ATV back when our driveway was really bad.
I'd imagine, yeah.
But then we got our timber trailers. We got a little chainsaw mount.
And this doesn't come with a trailer, but it's something, or does it come with a trailer?
It doesn't come with it, but we have these, and they're pretty easy. There's just a few bolts to add on.
That's nice.
We got the winch. This is a battery winch, so we don't have the battery hooked up because we don't want it just sitting out here and dying. But
that's an add-on because it just clamps to the main beam on that trailer.
Yep, and you got your support leg here. So if you're lifting logs from the left side or the right side, you just put the leg down so you brace it against that, and you can lift the logs up onto it.
Nice. And then the same trailers we just saw over there.
Yep, some more of the tandem trailers. These have the headache racks on them because, as I said, so the front panels and back panels come off.
And so you could put longer logs in there if you needed to, or whatever.
Yep, and that's why we got the serrated kind of front there. So you can put logs on there and haul those without them, slamming up against you.
A lot of uses for, and then that's nice because they have the different add-ons. You can go from having a winch to having the headache rack, or real simple with no headache rack down on the side. That's cool.
Yeah, and these are the kinds of trailers that if you get them, I mean, they'll last for a very long time.
Yeah, it seems like that.
Even if you do beat on them a bit.
Cool. Do all of Japas come with a conveyor?
Yeah, so they all come with a conveyor. 315s have a shorter conveyor option.
Yeah, I see that.
Standard.
Yep.
But otherwise, all of the Japas will come with a conveyor.
But you have a lot of 365. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4 365, or 3 basics. Some basics over there.
Mm-hmm.
You have a road version of the Pro. Is it Pro only comes with?
Pro only for roads. So we got 2 roads. That one I can show you some special stuff on, but you can't put it on the video.
Okay, that's fine.
But this one's got the display panel in the front, Honda IGX 800 engine. So everything you have is mounted on the back. You have engine, battery box, fuel. It's all looped in.
Well, that's nice. I see a definite benefit of this. Just be able to take it places.
Yeah. So if you're moving it around a lot, and I mean the thing with these is
you can move it.
Yeah. So if you're on flat enough ground, you can move it. I don't want to get it started and run off on me. But if you had 2 people pushing it and you put some blocks down, you can push it around by hand if you need to.
So then you can purchase the different log racks, the cleaners if you need to.
Yeah, and with the roads, we always recommend a log lift.
Yeah, for sure.
And the reason for that is 1, it's easy to load them. But 2, the log lifts over the tongue, and it gives you that extra tongue weight for towing it.
Yeah.
And so some people say, well, I just want to use a rack. It's like, well, if you just want to use a rack with it, you won't be able to pull it on the highway very well. So,
are the racks easily, or the log lifts easily removed? Like, if, let's say you bought a Road Pro, but then also wanted to have a log lift or the rack at home.
So if let's say you wanted to swap out between the 2, The log lift is just going to bolt on here, and then you have your hoses to plug in. The only other bracket that you add with the log lift is this one for your winch.
Yeah.
Otherwise, but that's it. And if you have a fork, actually, one of the nice things is the log lifts have a kind of perfectly fork shaped inside there.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So so the way we'll typically load them is we'll take like the forklift and we'll just drive it up and put the fork in there.
Yep.
Get about halfway through, and then you hold that up, and then you can unbolt it and back up
Nice.
the log lift.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then then the connections for the hydraulics are easy enough to loop in. Either way.
So technically, you could almost, if you could have both,
Mm-hmm.
and you could have that sitting at home, and then put this on if you needed to take it on the road.
Yeah, I believe Joe from Ohio Woodburn actually had a rack and a lift at one point. I think he took the lift off because he always uses the rack.
Yeah. Nice.
If I'm remembering correctly, I know someone had that set up at one point.
A bunch of cleaners. Cool. So Metsa Machines is the dealer in Wisconsin. So if you live in Wisconsin,
so we're the importer and distributor for the U.S.
Okay. For the U.S. Okay.
Yeah. So we're the U.S. importer and distributor for Japa. We do a little bit direct with the Japas. With our other product lines, we really direct everyone through dealers, and we are looking at adding new dealers really anywhere in the U.S. But we do drop ship, and when we first started out, we were the go-to place for the Japas. So we worked with customers all over the country. We've worked with people in Canada. We've worked with people in the South, out east, out west. So.
So you're the importer. I didn't realize that. I thought you were just a dealer. That's nice.
Yeah. So we bring the containers in from Finland, and from there we prep them here, and then they go out to our dealers, and then they get sold from there. So every Japa that comes into the U.S. at this point is something that we are handling. Besides, there's some older models that are floating around out there from early 2000s. There's like a Japa 2100 that's something that I don't think we've ever touched, but there's a few of those floating around. So we do spare part orders for machines that we've never even sold. Is
the support pretty good for Japa as far as the parts and
So Japa's been around since 1977. Yeah. Their spare parts support's been really solid. We've, as I said, we've sent out spare parts to people in Canada who have machines that are decades old at this point. Some of it's a little bit weird. If it's something that we haven't ever carried before, there's a good chance we might have to special order it. But I mean, those parts do exist in Japa's catalog, and you still can source those.
That's good to know too.
And a lot of the processors use a lot of similar components at this point, where like the saw motors, I believe, for the 365s and the 315 and 390, those are all the same. So it's not like they're going to stop using that motor. It's going to disappear. They try to reuse parts or grandfather parts in as much as they can, so that you have that.
So in stock today, you have a bunch of 365 basics, some 365 pros, 365 pro roads, conveyors, racks, cleaners, and what are the other options besides the 365s?
So we've got a container coming in, which is mostly sold, but we do have a 435 that's going to be available as of recording this video.
Yep.
Japa's actually doing a promo on their 435s right now because of the newer product lines they've introduced. So the 435s have a pretty significant discount on them. If anyone's interested in those are the perfect split only machines.
That's the 435. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
So 435 is perfect split only. Anyone who watches like Ohio Woodburners, I'm sure familiar with the 405, which is perfect split and traditional split.
Yep.
The difference between those two really comes down to the 435 was their first perfect split machine that they made, so they made it only perfect split. It has more power and it has a more powerful saw system than like the 405 does, which is part of why you see the price difference. It also does bigger diameter. But they've talked about they're looking at introducing a 505 in the future. Which they announced this past summer. So throughout 2025, those are going to start becoming available. But as of right now, they are not.
Clean out the 435 inventory first.
Yeah, they got to get rid of those first. And the 435 is a great machine. We brought that down to Paul Bunyan and demoed those there. There's a splitting ton upgrade on that, and it comes with a JPS harvester head unit, which is self-tensioning and more powerful than their standard saw system. And it is really nice to use that.
Okay, cool. That's good to know. Well, I appreciate you having me out here today. It was nice to see everything, see the logs, and the processors. I've never really seen one in person, so it was great to be here. Thank you.
No, pleasure having you. You know, come by any other time you want.
Yeah,
And
I'm not far away, which is nice. So
that's what's great about it.
it's good to see the other people's operations. So all right, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye.